I'm the CEO for Unlimited North America and at the same time the Global Chief Commercial Officer.
And what is Unlimited America?
Unlimited is the largest proprietary payment solution infrastructure in the world. We have 1 billion users on the system. We move money from point A to point B, and we're the plumbers behind the scenes that nobody's aware of.
How long have y'all been doing that?
This has now been 16 or 17 years. We're about 650 employees, 16 offices all over the world, highly regulated, highly licensed, and really growing like gangbusters.
What's the big problem that y'all solve?
The big problem is that if you want to move money from across borders as a business, it is actually really, really cumbersome. And so our philosophy has always been it should be frictionless to move money across the world. And that's been our mission, to remove these kinds of barriers by ourselves putting licenses in place, putting ourselves with the regulators and making sure that our infrastructure makes it as fast as humanly possible and technically possible to move money around without breaking the rules.
But also, you're not the bank. You're the technology the banks then use.
Correct, yes. Banks use us, large merchants like an Expedia or an Uber or Circle, Revolut, they all use us.
What did you do before this?
So this is the third job in my entire life. My first job was with a company called MicroStrategy, which is now famous for its Bitcoin vault. Mike Saylor hired me. I stayed there for 10 years through the ups and downs that have been very well documented. Burned out, took a sabbatical, then started my own small company, grew it over 20 years to about 1,000 people. That company was entirely focused on AI. At the end of it, Victor, the CTO, and we wrote a book about AI for enterprise-level CXOs. My life changed, and among the changes was the founder of this company read it and said, I've got to get these guys into my company to turn ourselves into an agentic commerce company.
And what was the name of the book, and when did it come out?
It is AI-driven, and we started writing it in the first year of the pandemic, so it probably came out a few months after ChatGPT. So you can imagine when ChatGPT came out, we're like, our 5th chapter was about generative AI. Let's quickly proofread it, because we had been working on the previous models before someone had this great idea to put a chatbot on top of it. And we didn't have to correct anything. It came out, was number 2 on the AI category on Amazon, number 1 on the cloud compute category, and life has changed.
Well, and so life has changed. Did you see all of this coming?
So, you've heard it now many times, I'm sure, but predictions are really hard, especially when they involve the future. It's a Niels Bohr quote. And so if I said I saw it coming, I'd be lying, but there was some probability that something revolutionary might come if we just unlock it with the right application. So the systems were in general in place, and we had been working on them for years and years and years and created magic. But on top of these platforms, what was missing was applications to actually attach to consumers, businesses at large, take something off the shelf to take advantage of these kinds of superpowers. And I knew some application was missing. Had I known that it would be a chatbot, I would have invented a chatbot.
You've been in this field for a while. You've been playing in the AI space.
Yeah.
What of the new tools, of the new announcements, because there's a new announcement every few days, have you been the most excited about?
There were 2 that really woke me up lately. So the one now that is a bit aged was one of the first agents was put to work by its master. It ran out of the task, and in the middle of the night, the agent figured out to install Twilio so that it could make a phone call, and then it called its master and said, I am your agent. I ran out of, I finished the task. Can you give me a new one? And so that was, from my perspective, one of the first times that an agent really reached into the physical world, if you know what I mean, calling the master to ask for more work. To me, that was eye-opening. I think it wasn't written enough about how groundbreaking it is. And then, of course, Mythos coming out and scaring everyone about the insecurities that we had not been aware of for decades and decades of software development also was quite eye-opening and refreshing at the same time, because it shows that pointing these technologies at something is not always bad. It is also really life-saving in this case, with vulnerabilities being detected that could have caused massive disruption if they had not been discovered before these technologies were more widely in use.
Well, I view that stuff as we didn't know these vulnerabilities existed. Maybe they would have been exploited. Maybe they never would have been exploited. But because AI can process so much information, since it can come up with so many new novel things for us to attack, suddenly we have time to think about it. And now that we have time to think about it, we now have infinitely more problems to solve. We just didn't have time to solve these problems before because there were...
It's a fair point, absolutely.
Would you describe yourself as more optimistic or more skeptical about what's the future?
I'm an eternal optimist. I look at my girlfriend Layla, she says, I look at the world through pink glasses. There's no way for me not to be optimistic about this. There's enough fear-mongering out there, and I respect it, and I do engage with it or with them. But I cannot help having gone through, I'm 56 years old, I've gone through crisis, I've gone through ups. I've seen some of my startups implode and some of them thrive. And so over time, you just become less scared of new things, and you lean in with an optimistic view, always knowing that there may be some risk that you need to manage along the way.
So what is we were talking about this earlier, which is mission. Gen X, the Zennial, the millennials, we are now entering into, their middle age. Our years of mission actually becomes a little bit more, well, hopefully more important. We don't want to go out the same way the baby boom generation seems to be going out. We want to be mission driven.
I am a baby boomer. How am I
you're right on the edge right there at 56. It's like, what is the mission that gets you up, like that it keeps you going, that keeps you invested?
So right now, I sit on 7 boards. I helped sell 8 companies. I'm invested in 3 companies, and I have a day job that is very demanding, and I have 2 kids. To me, getting out of bed really is about educating people about these technologies. That's literally how I spend my days. Educating CXOs about what is an AI, what is not an AI, where do you apply AI, why don't you apply AI in certain areas, and why. And so these kinds of educational sessions, even here, there was an AI conference just the other day, the #1 AI conference in the world, as there are so many of them now. And I sit on stage and I say some basic things, and literally people line up and go, I've never heard it this way, explained this way. Can you go deeper into it? Because I think there's a cottage industry now that has sprung up of maybe people that were NFT experts just a few years ago, and now they've become AI experts. And the whole mission seems to be to confuse everyone and drown us in this noise of here's the next silver ball, here's the next shiny thing, go chase it, go try to understand it. And by the way, if you pay me a lot of money, I can explain it to you. And so my mission is to just cut through this cottage industry and make sure that everyone understands that these are just probabilistic technologies. And so the best way I describe it always is, sorry for the long answer, but the best way I describe it is in the beginning, Germans had quite a big impact in artificial intelligence. And as you can tell, I'm German. I still cannot shake that accent. And in the beginning, Germans wanted to call it predictions based on advanced data processing. So that's it. And then the American marketing genius just took over and said, people will understand what it means. Let's not call it that, predictions based on advanced data processing. Let's call it artificial intelligence. So everyone goes, oh my God, this is amazing, crazy. Let me spend lots of money on it, which you don't have to. And so I just try to remind everyone it's really just predictive technologies that feed off of data with compute and models attached to it. 3 factors that make an AI, which is predictions.
When did the Germans invent these the prediction-based?
Oh, so they didn't invent it, but I think that they wanted to call it that. And so now they're coming back. Germans are always a bit slow, but once they wake up, they come back. And so I think sometime in the 70s or so, in the mid-60s, that's what they called it, until the term AI just completely eradicated it.
So you're walking around and you're telling CXOs and CEOs, I imagine, everybody there about what to use and how to use. But to your point, the marketers are the loudest voices that are out there.
Yes.
there's a little bit of a problem with the marketing of AI everywhere else right now. It's actually rated less popular than Congress in some regards. Is that an issue of marketing, or is that an issue of engagement or understanding? Like why is it, you're so optimistic? Why is everybody else so angry right now?
I don't have the golden answer, obviously. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I believe that once you get
To be clear, you are 100% the smartest person in this room.
That's
Very
for
clear
sure
about
not.
that right now.
No. So I think it's a lack of exposure. What we don't know, we fear. It's just so typical, right? So let's stereotypical. Few Americans have a passport, and therefore the rest of the world seems strange to us, and we feel more comfortable in the United States. 0.1% of the world's population has actually engaged with artificial intelligence. So therefore, 99.999% have not been exposed, and therefore not knowing it probably leads to fear, uncertainty, doubt. And so I think one of the missions that we need to have as AI practitioners is to just put it into the hands of as many people as we can, using applications on top of these platforms that actually engage the users in the right way, that they can feel, empowered by them.
That fear of the unknown is obviously an intense part of the human condition. In your experience, now I'm sure you've had exposure to people like the non-CXOs of the world. You're having to explain it. What is the way that you use to bridge that gap?
So as a German, and this is another stereotype, I'm a very practical person. So I always try to go through the routines that these people go through every single day, and just find ways of think of the superpowers of a generative AI. There's two superpowers of generative AI on an enterprise level. One is large number matching. You mentioned being able to go through large amounts of data. The other one is the more practical one, really, on an enterprise. I'm an enterprise software guy, so that's my comfort zone. The second superpower is process acceleration. And so when you go through an enterprise, when you talk to people, you discover processes everywhere. And when you think about what a process is a range of tasks that split up into various tasks that get handed to people and machines or departments to fulfill the task. They come back together again, and maybe a few years, days, months, whatever, something comes out at the end of a process. Now you analyze the tasks, and there's certain tasks that require thinking. Let me just think about this for a second. Let me just be creative about certain designs or whatever it may be. Once I identify a task like that, and I can match it with a very simple tool to say, create me, instead of me having to hand draw in some tool 5 different designs for a certain user interface, why don't I have an AI generate hundreds of possible designs based on my tastes and my experience and my input, where I can then, almost like in some dating app, say, oh, not so good. Well, I couldn't have done this better myself. Well, this one needs a little bit of tweaking, and suddenly I've accelerated the creative design process of a designer without having cost him his job or her job. I haven't eliminated anything that is core to what they do. I've accelerated them. I've probably given them more joy based on my experience. They suddenly see someone cooperating with them, and accelerating their creative juices and allowing them to be more productive at what they do. That's exposure to AI that, in my case, literally, this is a real example, took the fear of designers, an entire design team, away from actually embracing AI instead of being, fearful of it.
How do you replace fear with joy? Which seems like which is life. Like that's the goal, is replacing fear with joy. Right. And it sounds like what you're saying we need to be doing is also good mental health. It's what are the process is about self-reflection. It's about self-actualization. How do I live my life intentionally? And how do I be mindful about that? And if I can eliminate or improve on something with this and in a productized process way, that will bring me joy and that will eliminate fear.
Yeah.
We don't really have the frameworks to do, like in an enterprise, in the capitalistic system, the incentives are aligned to do that. In normal people's regular lives, it's harder.
It is harder.
We don't have the systems in place for
Yes, and I don't know about my mission bringing joy to people. I don't know, that can't be my responsibility. It would be too heavy for me. My mission is really for them to actually understand it and accept it. It's their job then to find joy in this interaction or consciously decide, you know what, that's not for me. And just like in other revolutions, right, not everyone became a factory worker during the Industrial Revolution. There is space for people that don't want to embrace these technologies, but I want them to make a conscious choice about this. You know, they need to understand what it can bring and then decide that they don't want to accept this gift, or they may not see it as a gift and therefore object against it, but knowingly do it, not out of, you know,
not out of fear, but out of knowledge.
Yes.
Make an informed decision.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. What, you know, obviously you're in the, you know, working in the fintech space now, and you're working to expand. Highly regulated.
Yes.
Where is AI impacting fintech right now?
So this, it actually is not just in fintech like that. There's many regulated industries everywhere, thank God. Regulations protect consumers, so there's a good reason for having regulations in many places, even though some people may think some areas are overregulated. Not the point. Fintech is being disrupted by AI, left and right, no doubt, everywhere. But just like with every other conversation that I have with CXOs, CEOs, enterprises, startups, you name it, probably when I ask a CEO, give me 10 ideas about where you think AI may help your business, help your bottom line, help your customer satisfaction, your employee satisfaction, whatever KPIs you want to pick. Typically, I go through 7, 8 of those where AI is not applicable, and you're much better served with deterministic, older school, still very modern technologies, and maybe only 2 or 3 of those use cases and ideas that the typical executives have can be accelerated or improved using AI. Same thing in fintech. When you think about fintech, especially a company like Unlimit, a global, highly regulated, highly licensed company, our business is actually really deterministic. It is move money from point A to point B, maybe via C using a certain method or rail, and there's no probabilities that can positively affect this kind of money flow. They might actually cause regulators to go, well, you only send $1 with 90% likelihood correctly to one of 2 places that probably may be correct. Regulators would get a heart attack about something like, and it would kill our business. So there's a large swath in every enterprise, and especially in the fintech space, that is deterministic by design, has to stay that way. But there's a whole host of processes inside of a company like Unlimit. You can imagine a global company, lots of offices, lots of employees, lots of people that we interact with and organizations we need to interact with. We're swarming with processes. And so the short of it is that our agentic AI lead, Alan, in his job description, I simply wrote, accelerate every unlimiter by 10x. Accelerate them by 10x. So that a company like Unlimit, with its 650 employees, can act like a fintech with 6,500 employees. Now think about it. In the olden days, a fintech had to show its standing and its gravitas by having tens of thousands of employees, of which we have 2 major ones right here in the Silicon Valley. In today's world, being able to say we have 650 employees and we bring change to the world, to our customers, to commerce, as if we were a traditional 6,500 people fintech, that's quite massive. And so then you unravel that, you go into the processes, you find the task to accelerate, and then it's massive, it's everywhere.
Do you see, like obviously the enterprise level, the 6,000 person companies are laying off.
Yes.
Like the Intuits, the Facebooks, everyone in between. Some of the smaller companies aren't firing, but they're not hiring. And it feels like the reason they're not hiring is they don't know what they need to hire for yet. You know, if you had, and I asked this to a number of different people, the unlimited money, and you were hiring right now, like, who are you hiring for?
So if you look at our website, you know, we're hiring like crazy. And so it really is a refresh of the team base. It's not that we fire people or something like that. We're hiring like crazy. And we hire for typically architectural skills in the engineering department, like in any software. You know, let's say 60% of the success of the ultimate engineering effort is determined in the initial architecture phase, and that hasn't changed. We're still talking about software. So architectural skills, like building a building with the right architect that can foresee the future of of your office building and make it modular so you can always be with it and have the right kind of designs or whatever it may be. Same is true in software, and so we're hiring a lot of software architects, system architects, enterprise architects, AI architects, whatever that means, machine learning architects, whatever that means. It's just a derivative of architecture. So you will see a lot of skills, I think, in demand of architects. You don't see as many engineering demands anymore, because in a company like Unlimit, and I don't want to put words into Victor's mouth, he's the CTO, but I believe that none of our engineers today is coding anymore. They have to work with Claude or some other tool. Let's not promote one, and orchestrate. Let's stay with Claude and orchestrate code. Work with Claude. Improve what Claude spits out, and educate Claude on the elegance of the software of Unlimit, so that Claude can be the engineer. And really, when you then think about it, we're looking for creativity, we're looking for design thinking, we're looking for architectural thinking. And I think the rest is that is true for the rest of the economy, as more and more companies embrace AI as a fundamental tool that they need to use.
I imagine you're also, because of your specific company space, looking for cultural context. If you're moving money internationally,
Yes.
You're building internationally.
Yes.
You need people in India, in Pakistan, in Hong Kong, in Latin America that are building architecturally for.
That's right. What a great point you just made. So literally just yesterday, and I can't name the country, but we were discussing how to put a research lab into that particular country to help the region, so that Unlimit, as a global player with a global platform, can be as local as possible. Like literally, region-wise, not just even country-wise, but there's even regions within a country that have certain ways of doing business differently than the rest of the country. And as a global company, we have to work within these regions. So it almost feels like an octopus that we're starting to put in place.
Oh yeah, Montevideo versus
Nice.
Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Sao Paulo even versus Rio.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the same country. So that like the regulatory framework and figuring that out. Because what's happening in Bangalore is not Lahore.
That's right.
Or look at the United States, right? We're now preparing our attack meant positively in the United States. We're really looking at 50 different countries that we need to work with the regulators, where my fingerprints have to go into some government database, my social security number and my signature will be stored in 50 different countries for us to serve the country of the United States.
Right, and Texas will give different, regulatory.
Very.
Than California certainly.
That's right.
That is a fascinating problem that I imagine AI is actually very good at helping.
It is.
Yes, but it's not perfect, and so you have to. It accelerates us for sure, but it does need the human touch. And so, talking about the layoffs that we see, the one thing I always ask myself and try to remind people of, let's pick Salesforce, and not because of anything against Salesforce, but Salesforce not long ago announced that they would lay off 7,000 of the 10,000 customer support representatives. Now everyone whines and cries about the 7,000, but what we should ask ourselves is, what do the 3,000 have that make them irreplaceable in the age of AI? And it's human skills, it's the judgment, it is empathy. It is the way you can engage with a customer that makes a customer act very differently than with others.
I'd also be interested to know, okay, where were they based and what were they building them with? And watching cultural context shift with, like, coders were, it's easy to outsource your team to India or the Philippines when they are working in a purely deterministic kind of, like, make this thing. Here's the spec, push out the spec. You do not need the cultural context. You don't need to know the business outcomes necessary. That's not your role.
Correct.
That is your role now. And if that is your role, you need more context, which actually means, does the future mean less large-scale centralization of 7,000 people in one office, and, oh, those 7,000 people are coming back, they're going to be all over the world? Is that the future of distributed teams?
Like I said, nobody can tell the future, but what I see personally is an accumulation of power centers or culture centers. So there is, a certain benefit to having, so in our case, having the AI team more prominently concentrated in one office makes a lot of sense from a culture perspective, from a collaboration perspective, and so on. But at the same time, you see this octopus-like reach into the regions and putting smaller power centers in place in various localities, but you have to make a conscious decision of which one to pick and why for context.
It's the advantage, frankly, that you have as a German and a European. Americans are intensely provincial. New Yorkers especially, but that's a whole other thing. There's that fear of travel. There's that fear, and like, at Howdy, one of the things I say, I don't want to give money to Facebook and Google. I just want to load a plane up filled with people and, like, take them down. Like, come to Colombia. Like, this place isn't to be feared. Like, there are people, there are things. You need to offer exposure because cultural nuance and cultural context matter.
And you speak my language, Josh, because there's an article on the internet that calls me the citizen of the world because I literally lived and worked all over the world. It's one of my missions is to just take the fear away from everyone about different cultures and embedding yourself in cultures, living with people that speak a different language than you and eat things that are pretty scary to you or may act, inappropriately in our context, but is very appropriate in their context. I very much value it, and I live it.
Comfort zone.
Oh, another wise one. Every day just try to get out of your comfort zone just a little bit into your uncomfort zone. Like, this is not my comfort zone, obviously, but I consciously choose to talk with Josh in front of a camera because, it's a good experience to get outside of your comfort zone and then retreat back and reflect what just happened, what did you learn, where did I mess up, where did Josh set me up, and all the other good stuff.
I'm going to start using AI for that a little bit. Like, what because it can actually adequately, like, how can I push myself out of my comfort zone every day and now track this and make that compounding investment that we were talking about earlier. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Josh. Thank you.
Absolutely fascinating.